everyone. Welcome back to AI Insights. My name is Fleur Prince. I am your host for today, and I'm here together with Larisa Munteanu.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you, first of all, for the invitation, Fleur. I'm really happy to be here today and to chat a bit with you about AI, data protection, and all this digitalization that's happening around us. My name is Larisa Munteanu. I am the founder of a company that does data protection support services and the CIPPE, CIPM, data protection lawyer and officer. So those are my certifications. And in parallel, I'm also a PhD researcher here in Rotterdam at Erasmus School of Law.
Yeah, and you, by the way, also recently got appointed to the European Data Protection Board as well as an
Yeah,
advisor.
yeah, that's true. As an expert for the EDPB in the legal expertise in new technologies sector, it was a long process for applying for the position, but I'm super happy I was selected and I can't wait to basically participate or to support the enforcement that's happening at the supervisory authorities level. That's very exciting.
That sounds really super cool. So, yeah, I actually want to dive in so our listeners can also get to know you better. So, can you share your journey into the field of AI and like what initially sparked your interest in technology?
Yeah, sure. I would say I have twofold answers here. First one, let's say, so around technology on a personal level, my father is an IT specialist, so I've always seen in the house a lot of IT technology and but more on a technical side. So when I followed the path of going to law university, I thought, well, technology will not be for me. I will just follow law, like some standard career in law. Then I found out, wait a second, actually law and technology can work together and there's a whole path for technology law. So I was more and more interested in that. And therefore, professionally speaking, while I was doing my bachelor's degree, I became very passionate about ICT law. That was how they called it. I wrote my bachelor's degree in that discipline, and then during master's, I also wrote my dissertation thesis in the same field. And for my dissertation, I wrote about data protection and AI, like how they overlap and how they're regulated. And stemming from there, I thought, well, at that point in time, that was in 2021, there was no actual legislation to cover this AI development. So I thought we would need something like a convention or a treaty for that, because AI is not just a national thing and not even at only EU level, it's much higher than that. So I tried to draft my own global convention for AI. And with that, I participated to the Youth Innovation Competition on Global Governance. I prepared like the whole convention and I presented it, and I was awarded the Ignite Talk Queen for that. Consider the presentation that sparked
That's a really
everyone's.
big thing.
Yeah, it was very cool, and it was a competition organized in China. So they really had participants from all over the world, but unfortunately, I couldn't go there in person because it was still COVID. But that really sparked my interest into technology and subsequently into AI because there are so many overlappings with data protection.
No, I definitely agree when it comes to when that's actually always why I say so when I actually used to be a very sorry, maybe I say that. When I was working in the startup world, like when people were coming indeed with laws around AI, like how it should be governed, I was like, why are people trying to interfere with this? Let us just innovate. But then actually we dive deeper into the thought process. We're actually so a lot of people say like Europe is behind when it comes to AI innovation, but you might agree or disagree with me on this. We're actually ahead in the game because we already know what the rules are around AI governance. Like we already have an AI Act that's fully approved by 33 countries and how we're going to make this work, while the rest of the world is still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I think following now the developments of this space, I think we are very similarly repeating what happened with the GDPR. So everybody fussed around, oh, we have data protection law. We had Directive 95 before, but that was not as developed as the GDPR. And when the GDPR came in, everybody started stressing about it, like it's a big thing. But then other countries started to look into it and were like, oh, wait a second, this is actually a good regulation. And that's how the GDPR became a model for outside jurisdictions. And I think from what I noticed with the AI Act, we're literally doing the same thing. We become the pioneers in the field, and then other countries seem to start from what the EU has.
Exactly. And also when it comes to the technology that's being built now, you can already see that it's being adapted. So it will already be approved, and everything that's being built without taking into account the AI Act will have to be re-engineered when the time comes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that also helps in terms of establishing a good standard also for consumers. Because then, just like with food, for example, then the EU standards are actually good and are taking into account how the consumer reacts to that.
Could you tell us more about Protector Privilege?
Yeah, of course. So Protector Privet was born after I gained some experience in the field of data protection. So I worked initially for a company in the UK where I worked very closely with a very nice team in data protection, and I gained experience in all sectors, so health, banking, education, whatever. And then I thought I gained the maturity and the experience to actually have my own business in data protection. And therefore, with Protector Privet, I can provide a whole suite of services for data protection, starting from training to supporting with different requests, advice giving, data protection impact assessments, transfers, and everything. So it's quite exciting for me also at this age to run already. But you also know into this corporate world and running everything yourself. But it's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, being a female, how is it actually, by the way, how's your feeling around being a female founder in the tech business right now? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, to be honest, I never encountered any, let's say, issues, but I do see that some people in the industry do encounter them. And mostly I can also agree with the opinion that it's more men dominated, which in a way to me makes sense. But I never had any issues. I actually enjoy working in tech, in particular in this area of legal tech, and I would never change it. I think it's very interesting, and I also like collaborating with the women in the field. I think we're super creative.
I think definitely that's actually really awesome to hear that you really find yourself in the field, and also being a founder in tech. What are the actually things that you run into as a tech founder that you think people should know about, or like lessons learned?
Well, I think overall the tech field is super competitive. This is something that maybe you don't realize when you're during university or in the first years of your career, but later on you start to realize that this is very competitive. The market is full, I would say, of people that are extremely competent and very skilled, and therefore you need to always look for something that differentiates you from the others, to have that spark, to have maybe a very good idea or maybe a super interesting way of executing things. And because tech is also very dynamic, you need to be able to keep up with this changing nature. And for example, in data protection laws, every day is a different day. You never know. You may have a data breach with a client, then everything you thought you're doing that day is no longer happening. You may wake up finding that the Court of Justice of the EU had just issued a new decision that changes your whole perspective on several provisions, or a new treaty or a new law coming. So you need to be very flexible and open-minded. Like, you cannot just be rigid. I learned this, I believe in this, so I don't care what happens in parallel. I think that's one of the attractive for me characteristics of tech, but maybe for others will not be as attractive.
How do you actually stay up to date on the new kind of developments that are actually happening? Are you using like a specific app or looking at specific newspapers?
To be honest, I have a few newsletters, like one or two, but I also have a very solid network on LinkedIn and also at university. And therefore, I try to keep connected by the updates that they post as well. So even with the big pages that post, like companies or authorities.
Okay, so you actually are also using your LinkedIn feed to stay up to date on what's happening in the field.
Yes, absolutely. To be honest, talking about AI and LinkedIn now, when I started my career, I thought I know how the algorithm behind LinkedIn works in terms of showing you connections and networking people. So I will make use of that smartly. And I decided to add a lot of people, even if I didn't know them, which is quite different from a regular social media, just because they were in the same field. So maybe you never speak to those persons, but then you see updates, what others are doing or what trends are happening at the moment. And then you create your network with things that interest you. And you only get what interests you on the feed.
Yeah, no, that's also why I love their follow feed, by the way, or their follow option that you can now have where you don't have to like personally connect with a person, but you can just
Yes.
follow them.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool.
That's what I do with a lot of people too, because otherwise, I had a certain point that I was accepting so many people into my LinkedIn feed that it was kind of all getting mushed up with what I wanted it to be. So I actually had to kick some people out of my network
Yeah.
just to clean it up.
Yeah, it could happen. Yeah.
No, but awesome to hear. And also for our listeners who are listening in on this podcast, so definitely recommendation. Make sure that your LinkedIn feed works for you.
I really think it's an amazing tool at the moment, not only for networking, but as I said, also for developing and keeping up to date with what's happening in whatever field you're experienced in.
No, definitely agree. I also do it when it comes to like the European Commission and stuff. That's how I often use it to stay up to date on the newest AI developments, or if they're asking questions or stuff, I get to read the first papers that are published. So
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And now I noticed two new trends talking about LinkedIn and what's happening there with the ethical AI. That's whole debate of the moment, I think, and with how people are using ChatGPT. So the Barbie box models and yeah, everything that's happening. I think these two are quite the trends of the moment. What do you think?
I definitely agree because okay, I will say I have also tried Ghibli style pictures.
Yeah.
So uploading my picture, turning myself to Ghibli. Until later on, I think I did see a few posts actually commenting on like, you do know you're uploading your face into the OpenAI database. And I was like, that is very much true. I am aware of it, but I really want the Ghibli style picture.
And that was a cost benefit analysis there.
The thing is also, I know Meta also already used all of my Facebook data to train their stuff, and I'm sure that goes to a lot of data brokers. So my face is already somewhere. And I'm also, yeah, I would say a public figure. So in that case, there are already enough pictures online if you look for me.
That's one way of looking at it. Yeah. I
I don't know.
encountered,
What's your opinion on it? That would also be a good question as a data protection officer.
to be honest, I'm like that very strict parent in terms of my own actions. So I try to avoid the whole open AI world as much as possible. So I didn't use it for creating the Barbie box or the avatars that were way earlier and everything. I try to stay away because in the end, to me, it doesn't bring any benefit. I'm not that interested of having a picture in a specific style or so. And I also like marketing and this idea of editing photos and creating something. So if I want a particular style, I do it manually myself. So that's why I try to stay away. But I heard indeed the two parties, one that says exactly like you, I don't really care because they anyway have my photos from somewhere else. And the party that says I would never give my photos to them. But in reality, I think there's also the third party to this story. The party that uploads their photos and then realize that, oh, wait, they're now training their systems on my photos. I didn't know that. And that frustrated me so badly in the beginning. Like the first wave of people that uploaded their photos on OpenAI. And then for a full week, I saw their new avatars looking, I don't know, like movie characters and so on. And then a whole discussion about, oh, did you know that now they're training based on your picture? No, I didn't know.
Yeah.
This is awful. Is a point. Why don't you read the terms and conditions?
Exactly. And the joke is actually you could upload the terms and conditions into ChatGPT and ask, what are you actually agreeing to?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. You notice the smart use of it. That could work.
So, yeah, no, I agree on that part on the third party that indeed comes in.
Yeah.
But that also shows the parts what's now happening here in the Dutch government, where they actually have required that people who work for the government and also that there should, or people who in companies actually are using AI, have to have a certain AI literacy. So that's actually a good turnaround to this discussion.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the Netherlands has quite a strong position in terms of how AI is used here. Also with the case of Clearview AI. Remember last time I checked, I think they were the last to give a fine and to even restrict or prohibit its usage in the authorities.
Yeah, but do you, I don't know if can you give a little bit of a summary of what happened with Clearview, also for the people who are listening at the time?
So it's a platform from the US, if I clearly remember, that collected photos of people globally, like millions, I think, of people, and they created a platform with everyone's photo, and even enforcement authorities could access the platform, for example, for investigations. Let's see, we have the suspect. We use the platform to see who the suspect is, if it can match to a person. All the data that they collected was unlawfully collected because they didn't ask anybody, hey, would you like to be part of our platform? They just scrubbed the internet and, as you said, got photos from Facebook or LinkedIn or I don't know, whatever platform that was available. And that was not lawful.
That actually explains also why on Google you now have when you use like Google Image, that you have to like press all these permission buttons before you actually start using it. Or Google Lens, by the way.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
By the way, we're now talking about ethical considerations. Like, what are actually your thoughts on ethical considerations around AI? So, how do you address that in your work?
Well, ethics, I think, is a very, very large, vague concept, if you want. And every time I'm talking to someone about ethics and privacy ethics in AI, it's quite a complex discussion. And I think you can agree with that.
Mhm.
However, at least in my day-to-day work, I try to focus a lot on the rights and freedoms of the data subjects. So I'm appointed by different companies to work on their behalf to do data protection. And that means I'm embedded there into their business benefits. All I hear about is this tool will be amazing. This AI system will help us, will maximize profit, will do this and that. But very little people actually consider what happens with the consumers or the data subjects. And this is when I need to think more outside what happens, in the company. So I hear again 3 times more the benefits, but I never hear the downsides. And therefore, when I do a risk assessment, for example, a data protection impact assessment, where I check if and how an AI system could affect data subjects, I try to focus only on the data subjects to balance a bit the situation, basically. So all these risk assessments, they are required by law in certain instances. But for AI systems, yeah, I think it's kind of mandatory to do them and to make sure that whatever benefits you're getting are not, let's
Yeah,
say,
outweighed, kind of.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I do it. But in parallel, I think it's also nice if we look around to observe how these AI ethics officers are now emerging. I remember in 2021, I think, or 2022, I was at a conference and they were actually discussing that we should have an AI ethics officer.
Mhm.
And it was just like a dream, like something thought this will happen. Who knows when, but we should have that because it's very important. And yeah, the legal department cannot know for sure what to do. The data protection officer cannot know fully. So we really need a standalone position. And recently, I realized that actually we now have positions for this. I see a lot of open positions for this kind of officers. And I think in such a short time, the market also developed and adapted to all these developments immensely and rapidly as well. It's very interesting.
That's awesome to hear, by the way, and also to even talk about, yeah, because I remember when AI ethics was coming in. Hold on, wait, I'm
That's fine.
no, I agree when it comes to the AI ethics officers that were incoming, that they're now playing a more significant role compared to 5 years ago. Because when I thought about ethics, I was really focusing a lot on people who like study philosophy. But that kind of shifted to people who are actually working in tech. But indeed, like you said, they take everything into consideration, not just the positive sides, but also the doom scenarios. And indeed, does it balance when it comes to human rights as well? So do not what do you call it? Like take away people's privacy if we use this AI tool.
Yeah, but I think AI is perceived most of the times as a blocker, just like data protection was in the beginning.
Mhm.
So coming back to the discussion we had earlier, it just follows the same path. We're
Yeah.
learning how to use it. We're learning how to make it in a compliant manner to not harm others, etc.
Yeah, learning how the tool actually can work for us instead of against us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the right way of putting it. Yeah.
Also, by the way, since you are a data protection officer, how do you actually see data protection evolving in the AI field? Like you said, it used to be a blocker, but now actually everyone's mostly for it compared to how it used to go.
Yeah, I think data protection will continue to grow together with AI because you cannot really separate them. Like you can do training on synthetic data to avoid using personal data and some techniques, but to a certain degree, you still end up with the data protection. So it's not a complete overlapping, but there is some overlapping there. So I'm sure they will continue to emerge like this. However, I have two main concerns about AI and data protection. One is about the development of AI, because I see there are a lot of engineers very excited to develop AI with amazing ideas, but sometimes they lack the expertise in data protection to make that AI system compliant, compliant with the relevant laws, I mean. So they really need to have a shift, or perhaps, a shift in the mindset that data protection should be embedded and we should apply privacy by design and by default, which means already from the design phase, we must have somebody in the team that can consult, that can advise on data protection matters. Otherwise, the system can be designed maybe in a less compliant manner with data protection laws, and then you encounter maybe even more impactful issues later down the line. So it's important to have it from the very beginning. And the second issue, so AI development is one. And I'm talking about this because I'm actually involved in developing an AI software that's aiming to help companies basically to automate data protection processes, ones that can be automated. And we had a lot of discussions about this, like what personal data can we collect, what not. And it all comes down to data minimization, which is another principle of GDPR, that you must stick to only what is really relevant, necessary, proportionate to what you want to achieve. That's, I would say, one of the worst parts about these conversations, because all clients want as much data as possible, or the data lakes, if you want. Maybe we'll
Yeah,
use it in, I don't know,
maybe
2
somewhere in
months.
the future.
Yeah. And then the second point, so AI development is one. Second one that concerns me is AI use. Data protection, yeah, it's one concept there, but sometimes we just use AI without thinking about data protection. And even worse, AI can be misused and can harm in terms of data protection. So in my PhD research, I'm talking about malware data protection requests, which means an attacker, so cyber attackers, can submit a request that looks like a data protection request based on the GDPR, for example, but instead of actually submitting the real request, they're submitting a malware file attached to the request. And this was also linked to AI, because now the cyber attackers can use AI to automate their attacks and like write a code. And then with that code, the system that's created just sends these malware attacks to thousands of companies in 5 minutes or so.
Amazon here is a good example. And they told about like a few years ago, they had like 1 million attacks per year, and now it turned to 1 million per year, per day even.
It makes sense. Yeah. 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 This is definitely growing.
Yeah, no, so indeed, like you said, definitely something for it to be at the beginning. Also, what would you say, also for us to round it off, what would be your advice for anyone who is actually starting their career in AI, especially in data protection, to look out for or to keep in mind?
Oh, that's a good question. I wish somebody told me this 3 years ago.
That's why we're doing it now, for the future person who will be like you.
That's right. I think, as we discussed, be ready because it's a competitive field. Be ready to be flexible, to keep your eyes open and only trust your own judgment because you hear a lot of opinions. Anyone interprets provisions and events online in many, many ways. But I would say just trust what you know and the way you believe it. Of course, not in a rigid manner because sometimes there are arguments that can overturn your decisions, but don't just look around and think, okay, so this is how it goes. Trust your own thing. And in this sense, coming back to the competition in the field, I would like to mention a quote that I think is very relevant here. It's from my favorite poet, Ovid, that says, "A horse never runs so fast as when he has other horses to catch up or to outpace." Sorry. So in this AI and technology context, these other horses can sometimes be your competitors, professionals, but can also be the AI system itself. So you're there, you're the horse that's running, but what's around you is chaos. Everybody else is running. The AI system is evolving. Data protection is evolving. So you need to keep your speed very high and sometimes to push more, maybe even when you don't feel like it. So that's why I'm saying keep your eyes open and then try to be flexible.
Well, thanks so much for sharing this, and also coming on the show. It was really awesome having you. Also learning more about what it entails to be a data protection officer and also hearing about your career. Anyone who wants to follow Larisa, I will share her LinkedIn in our posts. You can look her up on LinkedIn. I'm sure if people have a question, they could probably message you
Definitely.
on there. And to everyone else, thanks for tuning in and see you at the next episode. This was Fleur Prince, your host from AI Insights. See you next week.
Thank you so much, Fleur, for the invitation once again. It was lovely to speak to you today. Good luck with the podcast. And for anyone that has questions, feel free to reach out.